Like I've talked about in my previous Galaxy Explorer alternative build videos, this is a great set, perfect for classic space fans, spaceship fans, or even just fans of general history of LEGO. This pays a lot of respect to the older LEGO theme, and also provides a great parts pack for building all sorts of different things. The detailing is great, and it's also really cool to have all the printed parts instead of stickers. One downside to the set though, and really only talking in the sense of playing with it, is that the only vehicle for exploring the ground of whatever planet you're on is this tiny rover, no interior or anything. And this is going to lead us into our alternative build for today. Like always with these alternative builds, my main advice is to keep the parts together if you're going to take apart the main model. And when you're starting to build again, sort them in some way. For this time, I'm going to have gray, blue, whatever random colors, and then any Technic style parts. The instructions for the geoscience vehicle are pretty typical for digital instructions, just like the LEGO ones. It has the parts you'll need, and a lot of the time builders will do pretty well of rotating the model as you're building it so you can see where parts go. The first couple of steps, you use most of the Technic bricks to create the main foundation. And one of my favorite parts about this build and what really drew me to it in the first place is the use of the thrusters as the wheels. You can see that they kind of spin, but the connection point is actually kind of interesting. They use the frictionless pins instead of some friction pins, so they do flop around a bit for now. I have to see how the build develops if they stay like that, but so far so good. A bit further in, you can see all the wheels are attached now. The back ones still have a little bit of wobble, but for the most part it acts like a little bit of suspension. There's a fun feature on the front. You can spin one wheel and both move. Does have some stress though on the axle parts, so that is something to know. I'm sure that it won't be that big of an issue. You can see when you press it the other way, it kind of squeezes back together. That's a very well implemented feature, and I'm interested to see if they add something to make it easier to turn them, or if when the model is done you'll have to just move the wheels. But I'll get back to building this. And now at the end of the build, here's the entire geoscience vehicle put together. You can see there's 2 spots in the cockpit for 2 different spacemen, and on the instructions they just have 2 loose ones. They don't have any tools or anything, but they do have these little builds for yellow space rocks or something, which will come up again if we look in the interior. The interior is kind of plain, but very spacious, and you can fit all sorts of figures in there. The main feature is kind of this work table that has a sink with the hose element being there. You can see that they are working with some of those yellow rocks that were made in addition to the vehicle. They also have a cup, maybe being a beaker of some sort. And this is just where they end up using some of those leftover printed tiles from the original set. For the cockpits, they do open up a little bit, but are kind of restricted by the roof behind them. You could snake your fingers in to get the figures down. Otherwise, it is easy enough just to quick remove them and put whatever you want into place. Like most of the alternative builds that I've looked at, most of the printed parts from the set are included in the cockpit area. I think some of the nicest parts of this design are the ones that they take from the original set, being the use of those arrows again, and also a new version of the sliding door. Like all of the models I've looked at, I love the little details, like using the grill pieces as the ladder getting up into the actual vehicle, but also to get inside, the roof detaches, so you can get your hands in there a little bit better. At the front of the vehicle, there's a couple of scanners that move left and right, but also a little bit up and down, and these would probably be used for detecting the rocks to send the spacemen after them. Getting to the other side of the vehicle, you can see the arrow is used again. It doesn't have another door though, just the 2 containers where you can open up the lid, put some of those rocks in maybe. The main feature is this extendable claw, which you can move out with the Technic pins. Looser connection, so you want to be careful that you're not knocking this off. Also can rotate at that point. The claw is a little bit basic, but you have the 2 different modified plates with the clips. The last little bit of exterior detail for play is this little shuttle on the back. You can use the ladder to have the minifigure climb up to it, and it is very easy to remove with just being held down by 2 studs to have them fly off and explore a bit. And this is built as a rover style vehicle, so you'll be able to roll it back and forth. The hubcaps, I guess you would call them, don't rotate though, so it's going to be a little hard to notice them actually moving. And I kind of showed it off when I was building it, but the wheels rotate together. You can see though that they sometimes break apart. They're just held together by a single Technic pin, so the connection isn't perfect, but when it is working, it's cool to see them move together. With the vehicle completely assembled, it's very hard to fix the disconnected axle on the inside. The best way to do that is to reach into one of the wheels and pull it out completely, and you have to just try and line them up. It might take a little bit of tinkering with to get it in the right position. Overall though, with that pointed out, the steering wheel is cool, but doesn't function perfectly, so it's kind of a moot point to me. With all those features out of the way, I can definitely say this vehicle is put together very well. The main structure is very sound and holds together, unlike some of the other ones I've looked at. Most of the features work as intended. I will say that this main front steering mechanism isn't the best. I think you really need to use both hands to rotate the wheels at once. If you do one at a time, for the most part, it splits apart and breaks. But this works as a drivable exploring vehicle for whatever planet it's on. It's great how much interior space there is, so you can have the two driving as well as two or more doing different science experiments in the back. And surprisingly, this is a very small build, not using all of the pieces. Like you can see right here, there are all sorts of pieces left over, and some pretty big ones, especially those wing pieces. So I really think you could use what's left over to make a small to medium-sized spaceship to go along with this as well. With it noted how many extra pieces there are a couple different areas that I definitely think those pieces should have been used, like in the holes in the front wheels that lead into the interior. And there's some open studs that could be covered with different tiles that are left over, like in the front there with that 2x4 and also two of the 1x2 cheese slopes, which perfectly create a smooth surface that looks way better and blends in the front a lot better than what was originally included. Another part of the design that I would change is flipping the inside of the wheels to the other way, so the studs are facing the inside. I just think this is a much smoother look, and I don't know, I just like the design better. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And with that being said, let's go ahead and compare this to the original Galaxy Explorer set as well. Here you can see the rover type vehicle with the actual ship that the original set is of. It's worth noting, this does have pretty much the same height as this one, but a lot less surface area. Seeing all the different gray on the outside of the ship, it makes sense that they wouldn't use a lot of those pieces for this, just because it is a lot of just the cockpit area. So if you're looking for a classic style space build of some sort to put on the shelf, this one is definitely going to fit a lot better. And it'll also fit very well on the crater base plate that I showed off. And this is a alternate build as well for a Obi-Wan Star Wars set. Overall, for the space exploration mission, it would make sense to have a ground base sort of vehicle. And it would be fun to pair it with the little rover that came with the original set, so you can kind of see the scale difference between those as well. I think with that last comparison out of the way, this build definitely provides a nice amount of variety to your classic space display. Has the nice features like being able to roll, and actually with the wheels being built out of these parts, it works pretty well. There's also some fun little moving objects like those little detectors of some sort, and having a little landing dock on the back is also fun. It's nice if you want to have extra parts to build another spaceship or something. This provides that as well. There aren't that many negatives. It is a custom build built out of a set, so they have the set amount of parts that they can use anyway. They used everything pretty effectively. And you know, there's just like some little parts that might pop off every once in a while, but if you're putting it somewhere and displaying it, you're not going to have issues. And if you have a couple of different parts laying around, you can fill in the gaps in the wheel wells, and it'll be a complete filled build. And for just a couple of dollars, it's worth trying out. If you want to see any of the other classic space alternate builds from the Galaxy Explorer set, check out those videos. And for future custom builds or any other LEGO content that I put out. Don't forget to subscribe. I've been BrickRadYap, and I'll see you in the next video.